Hello, brave people, and welcome to this episode. I am super excited to share a person that is a brave role model for me in my life. Arezou, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I am so excited about your profile is that you have an executive background, you have this founding background, you're also a caregiver, you have a very global background. And so, for all those reasons, I was drawn to you when I first met you. And then your heart and your devotion, but also your clear speak just is one of the reasons I'm like a moth to the flame. What do you really want people to know about you as we enter into this brave conversation?
Thank you for having me, Nicole. And the feeling is very mutual. I'm Arezou, and yeah, I'm a mom and an entrepreneur, a former global executive, an immigrant. What do I want people to know about me? That I'm all of those things. And I think if there is one thing that I want everyone to, I hope that it is synonymous with my name, is that I never stop. I don't stop. I don't quit.
No matter what.
I have to rephrase what I said. If I believe in a mission, I don't stop. I do stop toxicity when I sense it, and then I pick a different path, and then I keep going.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really inspires me. So, the listeners have heard a lot of stories from me and fellow women in technology about speaking up. And one of the things that being in the group that we were in, so we were in a mastermind for a year together, was experiencing at least two other women who would notice a step towards unhelpful behavior, a step towards a mindset that doesn't serve and holds people back. Some people, toxic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before that, and clearly communicating, let's go this way,
Correct.
right? And I think that's one of the most, I'm hesitating to say this because there's so much beauty, but I genuinely feel right now for a lot of my clients and for myself as well, this is a skill, is meeting the trend before it's toxic
Mm-hmm.
and shifting before it's truly toxic, right? But I know that for myself, I only learned that because I was in really toxic
Yeah.
situations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
unfortunately you have to have some battle scars in order to learn that skill.
Mm.
It's not something that, I at least don't know if anyone can say that, oh, I can sense it before it happens to me, and it's never happened to me for that reason. Most people that can sense it before it happens is because they have been in toxic situations, and then they know the signs, so then they learn how to identify it before they step into it.
That is such a powerful summation of exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you. That is the insight. We can identify it because we've been inside of it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Which I think brings us potentially to your brave story.
This is a hard one that, you say, you were asking me, what's your brave story? And, you know, there are many moments in my life as I look back, I think, my goodness, wow, that was brave. That was brave. Um,
Yeah. But at the time, you're like, okay, I'm doing
I'm doing
this.
this.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the theme amongst all of it is breaking free from something that didn't serve me. And even at that
Mm.
time when it, it feels scary and on paper everything is right and it feels safe at that moment, breaking free of it and again recognizing that this doesn't serve me, um, that's the theme. um, my
Mm.
I have many, but I think the most defining one happened to me 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. So I was living in Chicago with my then fiance, now husband, and I had a big global job, teams across the world, traveled across the world, lived in a humongous house on a private golf course, and big title, fancy cars, you name it. And on paper, everything looked good. Everything,
So on paper, it was like check, check,
yeah,
check, check,
yeah,
success.
success,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I did not know you lived in Chicago, and that gave me a big smile for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, truth be told, it was suburbs of Chicago, but everybody who lives in suburbs of Chicago, they say that they live in Chicago. So, anyways,
Yeah.
um, and again, on paper, everything looked really, really good, and but I was in a job that was making me miserable.
Mm.
And it wasn't so much
Yeah.
the job itself; it was the people that I worked with, minus my boss. I loved my boss. My boss is still a dear friend, but he left when things
Oh,
changed. And
yeah.
then it was just very, very toxic. And for a long time, I kept telling myself, "Oh no, I like this. No, it's good. These are the challenges I need to face, and these are good." But I mean, how much can you lie to yourself? And I mean, there were days that I would just leave the office and go cry somewhere. And I'm,
Oh, God, I've been there.
yeah,
Oh, God, I've been there.
yeah. Um, there was one time that, after the regime changed and my boss, left, and I was in this executive meeting, at the highest levels of the company. And in this meeting, and I think I was the only woman, I think. In this meeting, I was
Mm.
feeling so down and so sad and just pent up emotions. And I kept telling myself, I can't cry here. I cannot cry in this room. I will not cry. But I knew that that was not possible. So what did I do in this meeting room? I put on my sunglasses because I did not want people to see me cry. And
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Anyway, so
Yeah, we will twist and twist and twist ourselves, won't we?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, And so it finally affected my health, and my health spoke to me. So it put me out for 3 months on disability. And while I was on disability, just kept thinking, what do I do? Do I go back? And by the way, I had a promise of a promotion from the CEO that when I go back,
Oh,
I will
yeah.
even have a bigger title and bigger job, bigger pay. Um, but I decided I'm going to quit. And this was
Mm.
2010, which was the middle of the recession, the 2008 recession. So 2 years later, the
Mm.
economy hadn't come back, definitely not in Illinois. I had, all
Yeah.
those fancy things that I told you about meant debt. That's what it meant.
Right.
And we had this house, this mortgage, all this stuff to pay for. And quitting also meant walking away from my equity in the company. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that. I did that. And it was scary. Um, and then my then fiance and I decided, Illinois just doesn't work for us. So we moved to Colorado. Um,
Mm.
and, things worked out afterwards. Things worked out.
So you have on okay, so on paper, success, 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 success. I know that for me, when I was in the board meeting and I was miserable, I kept telling myself, hundreds of people want to be sitting right where you are. Be grateful, be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. Hundreds of people. They flew you from Colorado to be in this room, back to Germany. Why aren't you grateful? Why? Like, I had this whole internal nonsense happening. It
Mm-hmm.
was so painful.
Mm-hmm.
And suffering so much, just like you. I'm so grateful you're sharing this story. Um, wow, I'm really tearing up for us.
Hmm.
10 years, well, for me, it was 4 years ago. For you, it was 10 years ago. Like, just with grace of this experience, like we share this experience, right? And then you've got gold and now you're being offered platinum and you decide you're not going to lie to yourself anymore. I mean, that's so much the process that I went through as well.
Yeah. And you
And
have to leap into the unknown. That's the scary part. It wasn't that I was, and it's the same for you, Nicole. It wasn't that I
yes,
was
yeah,
moving from this job to this job. I was moving from, to your point, gold and platinum into nothing, into
nothing.
nothing.
So when I leapt, I felt like I was leaping into me, though.
Great point. Great point. And you're right. So that means that you had enough of self knowledge, self understanding, self awareness to know that you were leaping into you. For me, my corporate identity was was a defining element of me. I didn't know me outside of what was on paper.
Yeah. Yes.
And it
Yes.
took 6 months for me to find myself. It took a lot, and it was hard. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life, but it was so good. It was,
Mm.
you know, go from, yeah, having a routine, having people, having a big title, to, like I said, none of that. You go to networking meetings with all kinds of fancy people. They ask you, so what do you do? Uh, I'm in transition. It's a humbling experience. One of the things
Mm.
that I wanted to do, I re-examined everything. I re-examined my career focus, my professional focus, and I put myself through an executive professional development through Kellogg, which was pretty spendy. And that's the type of things that
Yeah.
usually companies, you know, honor their employees and pay for that training for their employees. So I did it for myself. I said I want to go through this training and explore this other professional domain. And I was, in a room of 60 people that had flown from all over the world, by the companies, Swiss Air, Deutsche Bank,
Yeah, that is prestigious.
prestigious. Yeah,
Prestigious,
correct.
pricey. Yeah.
And everyone has
Hmm.
a title, right? I am so and so and senior vice president of, Schneider Electric. I am so and so and, chief operating officer of British Airways, et cetera, et cetera. I'm
Yeah.
Arezou Zarafshan and I have no title. And it was humbling. It was so humbling.
Mm. Yeah.
But that 6 months, and put myself through a lot of self studies, Johnson O'Connor Institute, to learn about my aptitudes and other kinds of studies that to show me, who am I really? Who am I? Who's Arezou outside of all of this stuff? The
Mm.
professionals,
Mm.
who am I? How am I wired? And it was a 6 month process. It was very, very difficult. But that's when, to your point, Nicole, I didn't know me. When I left that job, I was leaping into nothing. And it took me 6 months to learn, all right, now I'm going to be me. I'm leaping into me.
After taking a huge risk.
Correct.
Because 6 months for me sounds real fast. So before, I don't think I've shared this publicly yet. Before I left corporate, and my story was a little bit, I had a series of really horrible managers and then suddenly a series of really amazing managers. And when those leaders and managers left, it went back to probably what the norm was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did 9 months of therapy to emotionally separate
Mm-hmm.
myself, like essentially divorce therapy
Yeah.
from that corporation, from that culture, and from the identification of myself as this is my title. And it was only, I didn't start off with that. I was suffering. I wasn't sleeping well. My eating disorder was getting some triggers. My family was miserable, right? And I started investing in myself in some different ways, having the company invest and then also therapy. Only maybe a couple months in did the therapist actually say, "Hey, I just need to pull to your attention. We're doing essentially divorce
Mm-hmm.
therapy."
Mm-hmm.
So 6 months for me sounds like you took an enormous risk. The stakes were super high. And then you took I mean, just getting into the Kellogg program and paying for that on your own is very impressive,
Thank
right?
you. Yes.
So you could make these huge leaps as part of your brave story. Wow. I did not know that about you. That's why I love these conversations so much. Would you do it again?
Well, would I do what again? Would I take that leap?
Would you take that big
Yeah.
risk? So you had your health
Yeah.
situation, three
Oh, yeah.
months
Mm-hmm.
disability. You do it again.
Absolutely. 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 Positively.
Mm.
Hopefully, back to the point of not getting into toxic situations again. Um, hopefully I won't make that mistake. But to be honest with you, that was, it was very different. I was recruited to go, have this big job. When I met my boss, who recruited me to come, and do this, I was just, I was like, I have to work for this man. There's so much I need to learn from him. And he's still, to this day, we're great friends, and he's a mentor. He's a wonderful human being. So I am
Mm.
so glad out of that experience, I got that relationship, and a lot of learnings and a lot of connections. But when the administration changed and
Mm.
how everything became so incredibly toxic, um, yeah. So would I do it again? I probably would take that step earlier. When my boss
Mm.
left, I would leave. When
You
the
would see
only
it.
thing when the only thing that was making the environment um, tolerable for me, when
Mm.
that left, I should have left, but should have doesn't really help. um,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of things that I mean, I don't know if I would have gone through this really painful self rediscovery if I had taken that step earlier. I mean, it really was painful. It was really painful, because all of a sudden I had no idea. I didn't know, who's Arezou. What am I passionate about? What do I do? I wake up in the morning. What do I do today? What do I do? And yeah, so I'm really glad I went through it, and it was defining for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of those things, like, that's a story that for me really crystallizes a belief, a very strong belief I have, that it's always who
Yeah,
first and then what and how.
exactly right.
Who am I? What lights me up? What weighs me down? Who do I want to become? And then the what, right?
Hmm.
And then the what.
And then what?
So what became the what? You know that I desperately want to share this.
No. Well, in Colorado, things worked out really nicely. I worked for a few big companies, and I mean, you work for corporate, you know how it is, right? You have private equity coming in. Private equity does what it does, which gets rid of a
Yeah.
management. So we had that. We had another kind of a regime change in another company that I was at. And so all in all, and Colorado being such a wonderful place for founders and startups and entrepreneurs, I found myself thrown into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I co-founded a company with a couple other women. That unfortunately didn't work out. That company doesn't exist anymore.
Another risk,
Another
another
risk.
growth.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I learned so much from that. I learned so much about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and how do you think like an entrepreneur. How do you I don't want to say act. How do you do business like an entrepreneur, um,
Mm.
and how do you find your co-founders, and what do you look for, how do you find investment capital. So I learned a lot from that. So that was my training ground. And then last year, actually, I should tell this story. This is actually a good story. So, have always been very involved professionally. Whether I've had a job or not. If I have a job, great. If I don't have a job, I network like crazy. I take classes. You and I,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
I volunteer. So I did a lot of stuff while after that, startup didn't work out. But I'm also a very involved mom. I and my son is really intense. So him and I have a really, really close relationship. Um, Always have had it. But, when I had my big jobs, I had a full time home manager that I
Yeah.
trusted. And she was awesome. She traveled with me. And so I really felt like while I was, working, I could trust this wonderful human to care for my son and care for everything in the house. And I would come home, and my son, yes, he would miss me, but we can spend great time together because everything is done. I don't have to think about making dinner. I don't have to think about
Yeah.
cleaning the house. I don't have to think about giving him a bath or whatever, tidying up the. It's all so him and I can spend time together.
And I love so much that you just said, I don't have to think about it,
Yeah,
because it's the thinking, the mental load that is, for me, bigger
exhausting
than actually
doing it.
doing the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh huh. Yep.
So that was when I had my big job. But then after that, then she stayed with us for a couple of years. But then she moved on, and I couldn't afford having a full time home manager anymore. Um, so all of this stuff that she did now was on the family, and um, my ambition didn't go away. I still wanted to be involved professionally. I still wanted to network. I still wanted to go to events.
Preach.
Exactly.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
all this other stuff is here too that is, that needs to be
Yeah.
done. So there was one weekend that it was particularly a difficult, very difficult weekend for our family. And I had signed up to be a mentor for a startup, event for women that weekend. The whole weekend, I signed up for it. So what that meant was I had to leave the house and leave my husband and my son together for them to figure out what to do. And I really didn't feel good about doing that because it was just a very
Mm.
tumultuous time in our family, and just a lot of tension between my husband and me. And I didn't really feel like that was the right thing to do. At the same time, I didn't want to cancel my commitment.
Yeah.
I had,
Yeah.
so we decided that um, my husband and my son were going to go spend the day in at the Children Museum, and
Yeah.
I
I
was going to
love that place.
there with them, and then take Uber, go to the startup event, do my mentoring, take Uber back, go to Children's Museum, and they've had a good day, so we can go home. That was the plan. We did that. I took Uber, went to the startup event, but the whole time, my mind is racing. Right, I'm thinking,
Mm.
gosh, did I leave the stove on when we left the house? Did do we have stuff for dinner when we go home? Um,
The mental
the mental
load
load.
is
Yeah.
real.
Did I take the dog out?
Mm-hmm.
What if she has an accident? My
Mm-hmm.
God, was my son wearing clean clothes this morning because I haven't done laundry for months, or for weeks, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is in my head, and I look absolutely, I mean, all of that shows, right? I mean, I
It
am
shows
just
100%.
stressed. And,
Yeah.
um, my hair, like awful. I have had a haircut for months, I mean, just everything looked awful.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to this startup event. I was late, and they say, okay, we'll find a group. So I find there's a number of women that are, sitting together and talking. And I just went there, and they were working on a concept called "It Takes a Village," and it was about
Okay.
helping exhausted moms deal with the overwhelm. And it
Mm.
was like therapy. So I mentored them throughout the weekend, and unfortunately, they didn't. The concept was one that just couldn't work from a
Okay.
business perspective. It just wasn't. It was pretty expensive for the market, and just we couldn't make the business concept work. But
So the problem was clear. The solution wasn't.
wasn't.
Okay, got it.
And
Mm-hmm.
but I really, like, it felt like, the universe was speaking to me. And I connected with those
Mm.
women after the startup event. And I said, look, you guys, you have to do this. Please do this. I will invest in you personally. I will bring on investors. I will help
Wow.
you do this. And they didn't want to move forward with it. And okay, so that was February of 2019. But the idea would
2019.
2019, but the idea wouldn't leave me alone. And so finally in August of 2019, I decided I'm going to move forward with this concept, and I figured out the business model so that it could work. um, there was a little bit of hurt feeling from those gals because I told them, I said, look, I was so excited. I was like, look, I'm going to market with this concept, and here's the logo, and they were hurt. They were like, what,
Mm.
how could you just go forward with it without us?
But
And
they decided not
they,
to.
in their mind, they had put it on hold. Doesn't mean that they had decided to not. And in my mind,
Okay.
ideas have a shelf life. You can't just put things on hold. So
Yeah, I get it.
I reached back out several times, and we never talked face to face. Even though I had offered, because I really wanted to. make it work. I did not want them to feel like I stole their idea and moved on, because that wasn't the case. Um, at the end, they wrote back and they said, "Yeah, we think that we spoke prematurely, and good luck. We hope
Oh,
yeah."
good.
So
Okay.
I hope that
Okay.
that I meant the means. But anyway, so the concept
But
evolved.
if I can just, if I like, ideas have a shelf
Ideas
life
have a shelf life.
and we're moving forward or we're not.
Exactly.
And I think one of the really powerful things about tech is that we can collaborate. Collaboration and abundance exists in tech. Like I would argue, no other industry.
Yeah.
And your pace, your decision making, your commitment either plugs you into that or plugs you out of it.
Correct.
And there is no hold in tech. There's I know that I'm an extremist on this, but I'm gonna say there's no
No,
hold on
it's
tech.
true.
And there are jobs. I just saw there are roles, not job, excuse me. There are roles. I just saw a report come out of, I think it's Fast Fortune, who said that every so 20 to 25% of positions that are expected to be created in the next 3 months of 2021 have never existed before in tech.
Hmm.
I mean, there is no hold.
There's no
There is
hold.
extreme abundance, and it's up to us. Okay, so passion. I'm on my soapbox. Now I get off my
No,
soapbox.
you're absolutely right. And it's especially true in tech. I agree. In my
Mm-hmm.
view, it's true on everything. You
Yeah,
want to do
that's fair.
something, do something. There is no better time. That's my biggest learning. And it was interesting because those 6 months, from February through August, that the idea just wouldn't leave me alone. I kept telling myself it's not the right time. Um, you know, I I will do this when. I will do this when. And finally I
Mm.
listened to myself and I said, no, I will do this now. Now
Yeah.
is the
Yes.
best time. So anyways, the company was launched under the brand Dispatch Mom a year ago, September 2020. So from August 2019 through September 2020, we were brand building, building the app, building the technology. And we launched in September 2020. And we had a wonderful, wonderful customer the very first day that we launched. She was customer number one, and she believed in us, and she hired us. And her name is Nicole Trick-Steinbach. She's
She's
customer. She's
amazing. I've heard about her.
amazing. She's amazing. She's amazing.
Because the problem is real. The problem is real, right? So, my husband, and I am so honored to have been your first customer. I didn't actually know I was your first customer until you told me later. Like, I was just like, I need on the gravy train. So, my husband was a stay at home dad for 3 years, right? And he is just naturally, innately better set up for certain things than I am. Whereas I am like Miss Ambition. I love creating things. I love getting results, big thinker, all this stuff, which is fantastic for us. And we've, over the course of, I think we've been together now for 18 years, we've switched roles many, many times, right? But this is our first time living somewhere where we do not have extended family support,
Hmm.
right? We both have full time plus professional roles and ambitions. We have two kiddos,
Sure, sure.
and ain't nothing getting cleaned,
Right. Exactly.
right? And I just want to stress that earlier in your story, and I really want to stress it for the listeners. Listeners, do not slow down your career. A home management opportunity or option is available to you anywhere in the world. When I lived in Germany, I had support. When I live in Colorado, I have support. And
Yeah.
that is an option for us. Do not slow down your career. I see it way too much,
Yeah.
right? And so when I heard about I was like, so when are you going live? 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 And I forget exactly what happened, but something happened. And the person who was cleaning for us at the time was oh, she had a COVID scare.
Uh-huh.
That's what it
Uh-huh.
was. Right. And I like ran to you and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
And you have made your service, your platform have genuinely made my house and my body through the food delivery healthier
Yeah. Yeah.
because the problem is
The
real.
problem is real. The problem is real. And I will go out and say this, Nicole, that this has nothing to do with how good, bad, indifferent your significant other is in terms of
Preach.
it really doesn't. It's something that helps families. Okay.
Yes.
It's something that's,
100%.
and there are people out there that love doing this for others, and it gives them economic
Yes.
opportunities. We have 19 what I call fairies, which are service providers on our platform. And these 19 fairies are gaining, daily wages far higher than what they were able to. They're making new
Yeah.
connections with people. They're benefiting from an extended network. You know, and so they are benefiting. Our customers are benefiting. Do
Yeah.
not slow down your
Yeah.
career. You're absolutely right. Because
Yes.
now this is
Yes.
true for women who take time off to, you know, out of their
Mm-hmm.
career, that they will never gain that back. They will never gain that back. There's studies after studies about how 1 year of time off sets you back multiple years in your career, how that will actually affects your earning potential by 20%. So, okay, so that's a bad problem. That is bad. I'm not condoning
Yes.
that problem, but that's the reality that, when people choose to, and I know that this is like, it's, there's considerations for every family, but when people choose to step out because they feel like they can't do both, right? And we had so
Yes.
many, of this in COVID time. When you step out because you feel like you can't do both, let's think again. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see what options there are.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I have found, and this is an area where you and I have exchanged a lot about, is because we both have global backgrounds. So I was an immigrant for many years. You are an immigrant here, right? We can look at these various systems and say, we are told, I would argue, so US American women are told that it's their problem. And I will say it is not my problem. It is
Yeah,
society's problem.
yeah,
And so if I can keep myself, and I can't do this all the time, right?
yeah.
Of course, sometimes I sink underneath it. I'm human, right? If I can keep my eye on that is society's problem, and I require a solution that can solve millions, but right now it needs to solve for
Right.
me, then I can take inspired action based on my belief, based on my knowledge, based on my goals, right? And so can my husband,
Hmm.
right? And I can say the same thing about Germany. I mean, Germany desperately. Okay, so I don't think we've said the name of your
Company.
company.
Yeah.
It's Call Emmy,
Yes.
which I love. Germany needs Call Emmy because families there are also suffering different problems,
Hmm.
different stressors.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what kills me, and I didn't talk to you beforehand, so we can cut this out if you want. What kills me is that this is a problem to resolve for tens of millions at least just in the United States. And we see these companies that are, trying to solve again for tracking climate change data. There's already 200 some applications. They're getting all this coverage, all this investment, but it already
Hmm.
exists. And you are doing something that solves for tens of millions of people like me who keep the economy
Mm-hmm.
going, who are investing in other
Correct.
people, who are raising a family, all of these things. Why are people who have been historically advantaged and have the manes, why are they not pounding down your door and demanding to sit in your living room and write you checks?
They are.
Because I've got a clear picture of what needs to
They
happen.
are actually, interestingly
I
enough.
love
I
it.
mean, it's starting to come. As you know, we started in September of last year, so we're just having our 1 year anniversary as a business. But really, with the rebrand called Emmy. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
my home manager was Emmy. That's her name, so that's why.
Mm.
Um, um, with a rebrand, I mean, we're growing significantly, and we have clients. We have a general counsel who lives in Texas, and yeah, but she
Oh,
has
wow.
a home here, and
Yeah.
her daughter lives here. And when she comes to stay at her home and visit her daughter and her granddaughter, she wants to spend that time with her daughter and her granddaughter. She does not
Yes.
want to worry about, oh, is my house clean? Do I have, stuff in the fridge? She doesn't. We have like one customer, and I wrote to her a couple days ago. One of the services that we offer is we do in-home laundry and chores. So we go to people's
Mm-hmm.
homes and we kind of pick up the house. We do their laundry, we fold it, we just give them a few hours of relief. And we
Yeah.
had this customer who first said, "Oh, you're too expensive," and then she came back. And she was hiring us once a week. And she just wrote to us. She's like, "I can't live without this service. I want to do this twice a week." So we said,
Yeah.
and so she can have that time to do
Uh-huh.
what benefits her personally and professionally. So that could be, okay, go spend time with your kids, go read a book, go take a class, go take a nap, go for a walk,
Yes.
go talk with your girlfriends, go have a meeting with a client.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so it's really, really
Absolutely.
rewarding. For all of you who are listening and are in Colorado, download Call Emmy, the app,
Yes.
and give us a try. You'll get hooked.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So there's cleaning, organizing, laundry with
Laundry and
chores,
chores,
babysitting
babysitting.
or childcare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Meals, unfortunately, we are, and I know you wrote to me just a couple of days ago. Meals, we are
Okay.
discontinuing that service. So,
We're gonna cut that out.
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
So Lila, just cut that part out. That's not important. Okay. And what other services do you have?
We are going to add a few more services. We don't have it yet, but one of the services that I'm really excited about is called, I don't know what to call it. So if anyone has a good suggestion, let me know. So, the period between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. is a really chaotic period for all families because you're transitioning
Yes.
from work, you're transitioning into home, you are, kids are home, you're trying to get ready for dinner. There is no downtime in 4 to 7 p.m., right? And so
Yes.
we are trying to create a service where these fairies go to these homes from 4 to 7 p.m. and do all of that so that the parents, the mom and dad, can have a good, easier transition from work
Mm.
into their home, into their
That
family.
will be really powerful for caregivers, period.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Because especially for seniors who are coming out of the daycare and they're transitioning, and perhaps they have physical stuff or dementia or whatever, that is such a hard time for those families as
It's
well.
very
That's
true.
the witching hour.
The witching hour.
The witching hour. That's very interesting. Yeah. Ugh. There's so many themes in this. Like, don't lie to yourself. Right? You can only do that for so long. Invest in
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Believe in yourself. right? You can invest in yourself and your family with home management or other services, right? There is no hold period. There's today. That always brings me to the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So plant the tree today, right? We've talked about what Call ME is, the problem it's resolving. So I have a question. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Yes.
maybe you've already started a little bit. Who is your brave role model from your life?
My grandmother.
Talk to us about your grandma.
My grandmother, she passed away in 2004. My grandmother was a larger than life character. So uh, she was born in late 1800s. Um, no, that would make her very old.
Early.
Early
Yeah.
1900s. Yeah. She was
Oh gosh.
93 when she uh, died in 2004. So what is it? 1911 was when she was born.
Okay.
In Iran, and not even in the capital of Iran, in the provinces, Western province.
Okay.
And
So she was born into a monarch based? I don't even
uh,
know. What would she have been born into?
yeah, at that time it was a monarchy in Iran.
Okay. Okay.
But still, I mean, that was a very early monarchy, very early
Yeah.
monarchy. And so she had sixth grade education. She just only had, and she was saying that, she every morning, like she would wake up and she would pray or beg her mother to send her to school. Please, I want to go to school. So anyway, so
Mm.
she only got sixth grade education, and she was married off at age, at the, you know, she wasn't an adult; she was a child, so maybe 16, I think,
Mm.
and or no, maybe a little even, maybe 14. But her husband was also equally, like, they were children that when they got married.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and her husband was a wonderful man. So so from that, she had, I don't know, she had four kids that survived, and then a couple of kids that didn't survive. Um,
Oof.
but no, this is not a bad story. Listen to this. So she
Times were so different,
different.
weren't they? Like, I'm just so full of gratitude that my daughter
Hmm.
has such a different
Correct.
experience.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So with all of that, she lived in Western provinces until she was 40 years old. Her husband died of cancer. He was like, what, 45, just a few years older. Um, she had, my mom was a very young child. And when my grandfather, her husband, died, he had a lot of debt. And my grandma um, paid off all the debt, sold the assets, um, moved her family from the west, and she had moved the family before then, moved the family from western provinces to Tehran, to the capital. And when she moved her family to the capital, her extended family, her husband's family, they all moved to the capital as well. They're like, oh, she knows what she's doing, we're going to follow her.
She knows what she's
So
doing.
that
I
she
love
moved
it.
to Tehran. They all moved to Tehran. My grandfather died. My grandmother, liquidated the assets, paid off all the debt, and started investing. You were talking about investing in yourself. That's what my grandmother
Yeah.
did. Started investing. Now, investing in herself, investing in her financial well being. She started buying real estate and building, homes and renting them and selling them. Um, By the time, so all of that, I mean, she lived independently all her life, and she was the
Wow.
matriarch in the family. Wonderful human. She she moved to the U.S. at age 85. She became a citizen at age 85. Now I'm going to ask you,
Wow.
what do you think the first thing she did when she moved to the U.S.?
I mean, I'm thinking about it's not the same thing, but the refugees I supported were so focused on learning English so
Exactly.
that their descendants could go to school, get an
That's
education.
exactly it. She signed up for
Really?
English lessons at age 85. Yes. She borrowed my dictionary. I had this big farce. Yes. And she had indexed it, and she would do her homework, and she would actually feel anxious about, oh, I got to do my homework at
Wow.
age 85.
After a sixth grade education.
She
Yeah.
is, will always be my brave role model, because nothing stopped that woman. Nothing stopped her.
And you are so strongly walking in her footprints, standing on her shoulders.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I have teared
Oh,
up. That is just beautiful and so inspirational as well. Her spirit, her memory, her lessons will move on through your generations.
that's for sure.
Mm.
That's for sure.
Whew. So, how can people continue to learn from you, to experience you, to get involved in Call Emmy?
Thank you. Well, so they can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm actually pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more active on Twitter. So Twitter would be another one. You have a giant name, which I'm sure it'll go in your podcast notes. So
It
just, yeah.
absolutely will.
So look me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. Um, download Call Emmy, Emmy like Emmy Awards, EMMY, CALL space
Mhm.
EMMY. Download the app, and yeah, let's connect. Let's connect.
Excellent. Yeah, and definitely. So I'm not super active on Twitter, but on LinkedIn you really do. Your comments show up in my feed, and I definitely get value from your network in that indirect way as well. So follow, follow, follow. Everything is in the show notes. Arzu, I'm so grateful for
Oh,
you sharing this incredibly vulnerable story and inspirational role model. I'm also deeply grateful for the service that you're bringing into the world.
thank you.
And there are genuinely, fully, completely tens of millions of people who need to benefit for what you're bringing. And I so strongly believe that it's absolutely just the beginning. And I'm so glad to hear that
Thank
you
you
also
so much.
agree with me.
Thank you.
All
It
right.
was an honor, Nicole.
This,
Thank you so much.
thank you. All right. Take care, everyone.